One of the most common questions we have about our Delta Ohm logging system is instruction on how to export the data, to view it as a graph and to export to Excel. So I thought I'd do a quick tutorial on how that is done. Here we're looking at our live system at the Homeisham's office. We can see the temperature on our patio is 21 degrees. I beg your pardon, the temperature in the office is 21 degrees, the temperature outside is 19.2, and in our storeroom is 17.9. It's actually winter here, and this is quite unusual for this time of year. Now, a couple of points of definition for reminder. Remember that in Delta Ohm world, an access point or an AP refers to the base unit, the receiver, most commonly into a computer. The ED or end device is the logger and transmitter. So if we want to look at our data, we need to select which access point and which end device we want to look at. If you had a complex factory, for example, you might have several access points and several end devices, and you might only want to view some of those. So let's have a look at that. Note the View Data tab up here, and that's where we go. Now, let's look at some historical data in this case. First things first though, we need to select which piece of hardware we're going to look at. Now you'll see that we have very many access points on our system. I happen to know that the current access point for our temperature data is number 2539. So we'll select that particular base unit, and the end device, the logger that we're using, is number 3853, so we will select that. Now we can see, and I'll expand this slightly for you, we can see now that we have 3 temperature sensors on this end device, 2 K-type thermocouples and a J-type thermocouple, and we can select what data we want to view. We could select either individual channels, or we could select all of them. For the sake of argument, let's select all of those end devices, all those sensors for now. The step that people often forget, and I often forget at this point, is to hit these double arrows to expand that data so we can see how the graph is going to be set up in terms of the color of the plots, etc. Now, on this side, we select the date range we want to look at. So let's look at some historical data from the heydays of summer. Let's go back and have a look at January this year. Let's go from January the 7th to, for example, let's go to January the 9th. So we're looking at a couple of days of data. When I hit these 2 arrows coming in together to indicate that's the setting the limits, we'll see this symbol will change to a refreshing arrow, and then the data will appear here. At the moment, the x-axis, this axis, is set to 1 day. See that there is showing the refreshing. Now there we have 1 day's data from January, and we can see that we had peaks here of, wow, 29 degrees. It got very warm. So we can do lots of things with this data now. We can zoom in on it. So I could draw a rectangle over this and zoom in on this. I could put the cursor on certain points and read what the temperature was. We can see from this graph that it's quite complex because we're looking at a lot of data over a lot of time. We could change this x-axis to a short period. Let's go to 2 hours, for example. And now we can see less data or more data spread out over time. We can look along this axis here, looking at the times and dates. And for example, let's zoom in and look at that particular time. And in a similar fashion, we could select just what we want on here. Let's say what we want to do with this data now is have an Excel spreadsheet so we can view, in the terms of a table, what data we've captured. So we can see the Excel tab there, and we can set up how we want that to happen, but we're just going to export it now. And we can see that an Excel spreadsheet has been created at the My Documents default location. So if I navigate to that, so I look at my C drive, I look at me, I look at my documents, and I look at HT35 data, we can see that on today we have an Excel spreadsheet showing that data. So if I open that and then expand, we can now see that we have the dates that I selected and the temperature data that we asked for. We can also, let's close out of that. We can also create custom reports. So the printer icon is actually print a report. This will create a PDF document of the data that we've selected. So if I select that, I can call it. So I've called it Home Isham's temperature monitor. I can say I miss summer. We've got report settings. I've put a default header, and I can activate that report, and there we can see that that PDF has been created, and it will automatically open, and we can look down and we can see data on the graphs, data on the 3 separate probes, and depending on how the report's been set up, we can have the data as well. So it becomes quite simple. One other thing you can do if you wanted to, for example, view live data, one can select auto update on this screen here. So rather than looking at historical, if I select auto update, after about 3 seconds or whatever time that you have selected in your auto update settings, this screen will flash off and we'll see a live graph reading the current temperatures. I'm just going to force it. And that will auto update because we have selected auto update. You'll see that that will, every few seconds from the right, it will scroll left, showing live data as we view it. I hope that's helpful. Feel free to email us, greg@homeishams.co.nz, if you have any questions on the Delta Ohm system.